Hi, everybody. My name is Gary Gomes. I want to welcome you to this full moon day. It's um, currently October 9th, and as you may know if you've been watching this channel, I talk to you about Vedic astrology, what's happening in the world, and what's happening in your particular charts every week. I'll be posting more frequent broadcasts probably in a couple of weeks when I get more settled into new accommodations. And we should be experiencing better production values shortly as well. I'm currently, I'm a teacher of Vedic astrology. I do Vedic astrology charts. If you would like readings, my bio, I've been in this field for over 30 years. And so if you'd like to contact me for a reading, contact me at 508-525-0001, or else email me at garygomesg@gmail.com, or neivas@comcast.net. So I'm going to talk pretty much today about the full moon that we're experiencing right now. It's almost completely full. Last night was considered an auspicious moon. It's called a Purnima moon in Vedic astrology, and it's considered to be essentially just about as strong as the moon can get. This particular moon has been extraordinarily strong. So there are drawbacks to it too. Also, I'm going to interrupt myself here and just let you know, although I do readings and classes in Vedic astrology, so if you'd like me to tutor you one-on-one in Vedic astrology, I can do that. I will also be having a school coming. I'm having a book coming. I'm having more channels coming, channels connected with music and things like that. So, and I have made the basic moves towards developing a Patreon page. So if anybody would like to support me or in that way, I'll have the links up for that pretty soon. But I want to get straight into the astrology, not just because I don't want to bore you. That's one thing, but also because I'm on a fairly tight schedule this week, and I want to see if I can get as much done as I possibly can. So without further delay, let's look at the chart for this full moon. And we're also going to talk a little bit about the eclipses that are coming up in a couple of weeks. Okay, so I'm gonna stop the share on this chart because usually Zoom doesn't pop up on the first try. And do it one more time. I may have some interruptions during the video. I apologize for that. This is a relatively uncontrolled environment I live in. So, from the chart we have right now, it's interesting. This is a chart that I'm pulling up right now because this is the rising sign chart for the first lunar eclipse. But this is a Scorpio rising chart. Mars is in the 7th house. So essentially what that means in general terms is everybody's a little bit aggressive, everybody's a little bit anxious. This full moon is good. It's what's called is a really strong full moon. It's going to be the biggest full moon we're going to see this year. And the sun and moon are in opposition. Venus, Mercury, and Jupiter, the three great benefics, are in opposition. But there are some problems with it, and I'm not going to lie to you about that. So full moons are generally good times to begin tasks. It's this particular. So I'm going to go into the Panchanga and Yogi, and it's a bright full moon, and it's not supposed to be used for travel. So if you're traveling today, it's not considered to be a good day to travel. It doesn't mean anything bad will happen to you, but it means that basically that there'll be some problems in terms of travel or in destination. Now, getting onto it, there are some very good things in this chart, so we have reason to feel optimistic. Relations with other people will get better because we'll have basically good luck. So this is a conjunction of the Lord of the fifth and the Lord of the Lord of the ninth house, which are considered to be two really, really lucky houses in Indian astrology. The 10th house Lord is in the 11th house, so there should be gains from any work that you undertake during this week, and also just in general. But it'll be a hard week. And the reason I'm saying it's a hard week is mainly because we have Saturn aspecting Jupiter and Moon. So anything that we put our effort into this particular week, expect it to be repeated a couple of times. Expect it to be done a couple of times. It's not a bad week, but it's not a particularly prosperous full moon. Rahu's in the 8th house, so there's going to be some dissatisfaction. I'm sorry, Rahu's in the 6th house, so there's going to be some anxiety over diseases or wars or leadership. And at the other end, Sun, Mercury, and Venus will be encouraging us to spend our money on luxurious things or on extravagant things. So we'll work, but we'll also spend rather quickly. And that's because Venus is debilitated. The Lord of Venus is in the 12th. I'm sorry, Ketu's in the 12th house. That tends to cause some problems with expenditures as well. And people will feel a little bit fearful about doing what they enjoy because of the Saturn aspect on Jupiter and the moon. But basically, this is not a bad chart. The most problematic planets are both Saturn and Mars. They're natural malefics in an Indian chart, so it might be a week in which we see more fighting, more threats of war, more problems with war. I know a lot of people are focusing, a lot of Western astrologers or people who use the Vedic system, are looking at the Uranus, Pluto square, and getting very upset about that. And I think what this signals really, if I can put on my Western cap for a second, because I did study Western astrology, and I sometimes look at the outer planets as confirmation of what I'm seeing from the traditional planets, is we're seeing that Pluto-Saturn combination over there does mean some disruption to finances. So we can expect some financial difficulties over the next few years. But that's pretty consistent with what's happening with Jupiter and Rahu right now. Jupiter's going to be in the same sign with Rahu next April, so that'll give financial panic. And secondly, Saturn is in an angle to Rahu. So again, that increases financial panic. Saturn aspects Moon and Jupiter, that makes everybody a little bit worried. And Saturn aspects Ketu, again, that's still going to give problems with supply chains. So so we're going to look at the world in a few minutes from the chart. Let me stop the share again for a second. I like to do this every once in a while. And let's see now. We have, and I want to pull up the eclipse chart just to look at that for 1 second. October 25th. October 25th, the eclipse occurs. It mainly hits this eclipse, this solar eclipse will mainly hit Asia and the Middle East. So it'll be more visible, Asia, the Middle East, parts of Africa. So it'll be more visible in those locations. But we can see it's in the sign of trade, which is Libra. It's going to cause some panic with military types. And Mars is in Gemini, so there'll be more talk of war. Mars is aspecting Mercury. There'll be more lies about war, to be honest with you. Okay, the good thing about this eclipse is Mercury is isolated. It's not conjunct any other planet. The bad thing about that is we have similar combinations for 9/11. So Mercury isolated isn't necessarily a good thing, but at least it's not in the first house, as it was during the 9/11 bombings. At least from this chart. So I don't want to panic anybody. Saturn will also be direct by that time. So essentially any of the consequences or any of the upsets we're seeing from bad economic conditions will start to manifest around that time. And Jupiter is still retrograde though, so there'll be a lot of optimism in the world. And Mars is in Gemini, so this particular eclipse is going to hit Libra suns, Aries suns, Capricorn suns, and Cancer suns most strongly. If we're going back to the now chart, and what'll it do? Well, it's in Swati Nakshatra, so there'll be either a show of arms or a show of. So Chitra, sun's in Chitra, Ketu's in Swati, moon's in Chitra, Venus is in Chitra. So Venus is fairly well placed. No, Venus is in Swati, excuse me. Sun is in Swati too. So the moon is in Chitra. So basically there'll be worry about destruction, about war, about all those other things. And this will cause a lot of anxiety. So you'll see a lot of people pumping up anxiety about war. And you'll actually see some governments, I would say, deposed around that time, essentially just coming down. And we'll look at location next week. We won't look at location this week. I also think between October 25th and November 7th, which is the second eclipse, there'll be a lot of anxiety over financial markets. That's pretty much guaranteed. However, on the plus side, that this eclipse will give a way for economies to restructure themselves. It'll give a way for organizations to restructure themselves. It'll also give what I would call, because Saturn is going direct, it'll give a return to what I would call more conservative fiscal traits. So you'll see more tightening and lending, and also more pressure to slow down the economy. It's That'll be the basic theme over the next 4 to 5 months or so. Okay. In terms of a recession, I don't think you're going to see a year's long recession, but certain parts of the world are going to get hit much worse than others are. And I think that's one of the things we're going to have to look out for in the world map. So we'll look at that next week. But looking at your individual signs, let's look at that right now. So before we get into the world map, let's look at your individual signs. So for Aries, right now we have Mars in the second house, Rahu's in the first house, so the sign's still dissatisfied. It's kind of upset. There's a lot of disruption going on in his life. And the Lord, but there'll be a lot more focus on money. It'll be much more effective money maker as a planet. Mercury's in the sixth house, will be much more effective in terms of dealing with women than it has been over the past couple of months. There's been a lot of jealousy exhibited towards this sign by females or artistic people over the past month, and there's also been some problems. There have been some problems with self-expression. K2's in the seventh house. Partnerships haven't been as good as you would have liked them to have been. Relationship partners in particular will seem to be a little bit cold or aloof. Eighth house, the Munta is the eighth house. That's the focus of the chart. So a lot of the focus is on relationship partners' earnings at this particular time, which are a little bit difficult. They're relying on earnings from past ventures. Ninth house Lord is Jupiter. Jupiter's placed in the 12th house, so there'll be a lot of expenses for the sign still, but a lot of positive publicity from distant places. Saturn's in the 10th house, a lot of strength in the sign, a lot of force, a lot of effort. It'll pay off towards the end of the month. You'll see really, really, really good results towards the end of the month, and a lot of recognition. For Taurus, this is May 15th to June 15th. For Taurus, you have Mars in the first house. And again, this is a condition which causes domestic relationship problems. People will be more short-tempered. They'll be more worried about land and property than normal. But you do have good planets for money in the fifth house. The Lord of the house of money is in the fifth house, along with the Lord of the fourth house, and along with the Lord of the first house. So that creates what's called a Raj Yoga, and actually it creates what's called Adana Yoga, or wealth producing combination. So you'll get money through creative activities or through artistic endeavors. Children will do really well, even if they seem to be unhappy. K2's in the sixth. K2 in the sixth is not a good placement. Again, these signs should be careful of their health. They should probably be a little bit careful of infectious diseases. Relationship life is sort of like the focus for this chart this week. And again, similar to Aries, but relationship partners will have more financial gains. They'll have more financial luck. This is overall a good week for Taurus, even though there'll seem to be a lot of work, and people who are in control of them will seem to be very, very aggressive and very, very difficult to deal with. But this will give some fame or some career ambition fulfillment. For Gemini, again, a reasonably good week for Gemini rising. Gemini has, again, the Saturn and this Venus. Just gonna tell you quickly, the Saturn and this Venus makes everything seem a little bit sour. To be truthful, it's not really the greatest placement. So even if things are going somewhat well, you won't feel happy, or you'll feel like a lot of things are being delayed. Towards the end of the month, you'll see some blockages removed, because Venus will enter Libra, and in conjunction with K2, which will cause some unexpected opportunities, but also some problems. And let's see now. But basically, this is a good combination. House-wise, it's a good combination. Very competitive month for you, and also seventh house Lord, a lot of focus on relationship life. I'm sorry, seventh house Lord is Jupiter, a lot of focus on career with relationship partner. And I think when we're looking at this particular sign, this combination is really good for financial growth and financial gains, and also for career prominence. So Gemini will actually have a similar month to or a similar week to Taurus, but it will be much more of a fulfillment of dreams or ambitions. So they'll actually gain a lot of prominence. For Cancer, Cancer has basically good luck. Relationship partners will be a little bit difficult to deal with, to be honest with you. Our relationship life will be a little bit stymied. Again, that'll start moving forward towards the end of the month. Also, some of the projects you've been interested in doing, some of the bigger activities you've been interested in doing, even some of your small desires will seem to be a little bit rough. A lot of people are unhappy in love this month. It's not really um, um, their particular fault. It's just basically that that Venus is debilitated, and Mercury in this particular sign will actually help you make more social contacts. So when you're ready for relationship life, it'll be better for you. The other thing is with Cancer, K2 is in the fourth house, Rahu's in the 10th. So there'll be some career success, some fulfillment of career ambitions, but it'll still feel a little bit unfulfilling. And home life will still seem to be filled with drama or anger. House of Children, children will want things. That's not an unusual situation. And let's see now, Saturn's in the seventh house. We already spoken about that. Relationship partners will seem to be glum or difficult to deal with. And this is good. This is true for people with moon in Cancer or other prominent planets in Cancer. Moon and Jupiter are in the ninth house. It's a very good placement. Jupiter's in its own sign. Will make the sign super competitive. Cancer will be super competitive this month. Very, very forceful. It'll be able to move forward quickly. Again, relatively quickly, there'll be a couple of months delay, and like I said, some unexpected surprises towards late October, early November, especially in terms of home life, romantic life, and also, excuse me, and also, I think you'll see a lot of career expansion. For Leo, Leo has Mars in the 10th, which is a great placement for it. It's about to go into the 11th within a few weeks, so that'll be like super prosperous for it. And then it'll go back into the 10th again, so it'll have to work harder than normal over the next few months. But basically, this sign will do okay. There's good money coming in for Leo. There's a lot of focus on money for Leo this particular month. And K2 makes this sign particularly brave and strong this month. Rahu's, we have Moon and Jupiter in the 8th house. This sign will seem to be very attractive, very domineering this month, or this week, excuse me. Saturn's in the 6th house, so you'll have to be careful about health. You'll have to slow down, make sure you don't take on too many new projects. And finally, when we go to the 7th and 8th houses, there'll be gains of wealth and legacies. And again, a feeling that luck isn't quite where you want it to be, but it'll still be good. For Virgo, actually, not a bad month, not a bad week for Virgo financially. So income will be a little bit less than you planned on. It'll give like unpleasant surprises, but this is Adani Yoga for Virgo rising, as it is for Taurus and Gemini rising, and also for to a lesser extent for Libra rising, which we'll get to it, or Libra sun, which we'll get to in a few minutes. But for Virgo, it's actually an extremely good placement. There'll be money going out to the government. That's guaranteed, and there'll be money, unexpected expenses at home, but earning ability will be good. Prominence in the world will be good. Mars is in the ninth house. That's a good placement. So there'll be some luck with the opposite, like romantically for this sign. We have no planets in Scorpio, no prominent planets in Scorpio, but the Lord of Scorpio is Mars, so it'll make the sign a little bit more fearless. Saturn is in the fifth house. So again, you'll attract relationship partners or individuals interested in you relationship-wise who are a little bit older or less than your ideal, but they'll be loyal people. Moon and Jupiter is in the seventh house. That gives new relationship opportunities, also new business partnerships. Rahu's in the ninth. Those individuals will be unhappy with their station in life. They'll want more from life, either financially or emotionally, and that'll show up. Mars is in the ninth house, which, as we said before, is good for income from unexpected sources and also from courage. So this sign shouldn't be afraid to take chances this month, especially in terms of new partnerships. For Libra, Libra has Ketu in the first, Rahu in the seventh. This is really not that bad a placement. Ketu's kind of makes this sign more intuitive about markets and about market conditions than normal. Rahu will make relationship partners more difficult to understand, or they'll be changing their minds all the time, but relationship partners will bring in additional money. And also, at least from this chart, there'll be financial gains through real estate or through other assets. Third house Lord is in the sixth house. That's actually a good place for it because it indicates through hard work you'll get what you want. But again, keep in mind there'll be a lot of obstacles placed in your way. You'll have to, home life won't necessarily be the most supportive of your projects. And the other thing is, although Jupiter aspects the 10th house, which is good for career advancement, so home life will seem to be a little bit restrictive or a little bit tied down, and they'll tend to be this sign will feel a little bit like it's constricted, so we keep in mind that won't last forever. That'll go away completely next by January, and I think you'll find you'll have a lot more freedom by January, but also you'll be feeling a lot better within about 12 days for Libras. Ninth house Lord is in the 12th house. That's actually a good placement, so it gives some benefits from foreign countries or from people at a distance. And let's see now. We have Scorpio coming up next. Scorpio's has Mars in the 7th house, so like Taurus, there'll be a lot of focus on relationship life. Relationship partners will seem to be a little bit difficult, but there'll be a lot of anger with relationship partners, but there'll also be a lot of sexual chemistry, to be honest with you. Jupiter and Moon are in the 5th house. That's very good for luck. It's very good for children. It's good for love affairs if Scorpio's so inclined. But love affairs will tend to cause a little bit of difficulty if you're already in a long-term relationship, so just be a little careful. Just be more than careful. Don't do it because you'll be punished. Saturn's aspecting Jupiter and the moon. And let's see now. And don't do it because it's the wrong thing to do, obviously. Sun, Venus, and Mercury are in the 11th house. It should be good for financial gains for the sign. And career life should be also good because the 10th house Lord is in the 11th. So it looks like a pretty good month. Very, very insightful. This sign will be very, very insightful this month, very, very accurate this month. For Sagittarius, Sagittarius has the Lord in the 4th house, so that gives it more interest in learning, but it'll be more hard learning. You'll have to be relearning things, but that will actually produce some kind of financial benefit for this sign. Saturn aspecting the moon. Also, I don't talk about these points, but you see the Sri Lagna over here. This is one of the indicators of prosperity. So that Pluto on top of the Sri Lagna is not a good sign. But it can also mean, well, through underground assets or through crime, to be honest with you, but also through minerals, oils, things like that. So it's not entirely negative. Pluto combinations are disruptive, but they're not negative always. But that Saturn combination right here in the 2nd house does mean money will be limited and you'll have to work hard for it. Mars in the 6th house as Lord of the 5th, and with Rahu in the 5th house, luck will have to be grabbed or seized. The 7th house, relationship partners doing pretty well. They'll have a lot of financial resources coming in. They'll also spend it kind of quickly, but they'll have a lot of financial resources coming in. So this looks basically like a good week for Sagittarius. For Capricorn, this feeling of wanting to trim back the clock or wanting to reset the dial to an earlier, happier time, it'll start to fade out towards the end of the month, but it'll still be there. And I think this combination favors conservative viewpoints. Saturn's aspecting Jupiter. It will up until the election. So that's why I'm thinking you're going to see a Republican majority in both houses, but we'll see what happens. The eclipses could change that. And the other thing is a lot of people are afraid of war. If they're afraid of war, there is usually a tendency to stick with the party in power. So I think that may be part of the reason we're hearing so much about war right now. It's sad that I'm saying it this way, and it may be a legitimate concern. I think it is a legitimate concern, to be honest with you. We're in kind of a dangerous situation right now, but usually you'll hear efforts to keep the peace being mentioned as a or people trying to turn down the thermostat. I think this is being used strategically, and so I don't know if it'll be taken seriously by either side right now, but it's certainly scaring the hell out of a lot of people. The other thing is we have that nice Moon Jupiter conjunction in the 4th house, so that's really good. One of the reasons I focus so much is because I have this as a U.S. rising sign chart, but this is Sagittarius in general. And we have Moon, Jupiter aspecting Sun, Venus, and Mercury in the 10th house for the sign. So it looks like a good career month for the sign. Ultra competitive. And So let's move on to Capricorn. So that's that feeling of, so I switched back to Sagittarius for a second, but Capricorn does favor a conservative outlook. It does favor turning back the clock. Money should be better for Capricorn this month. Um, and this week, um, Moon and Jupiter are in the third house. There's a tendency for the sign not to want to rock the boat. Rahu's in the fourth house of this sign, so there's some displeasure with domestic life and some desire to be recognized or noticed in the world. Mars is in the sixth house, so again, like I said, that's that fear of war, that ultra competitiveness, but also that fear of war starting up. And finally, if we go over here, the ninth house is very good. The 10th house is not so great. So the 10th house has K2 in it, so that'll block Capricorn's efforts to be recognized or to make money, but that'll abate somewhat after the eclipses. Aquarius has Moon and Jupiter in the second house, Rahu in the third house. When we have Moon and Jupiter in the second house in any chart, it's usually good for money. It's aspected by Sun, Venus, and Mercury. This will give money from unseen or unexpected sources. There will be fights at home. This sign will be very ambitious this month, but luck won't be on its side towards those ambitions. But within about a month or so, you'll start to see this sign make some progress in terms of its ambitions. And overall, this is a good chart for Aquarius. Saturn aspects the second house, so money will come in, but it'll be slow, and the person will have to build something like either a school or some kind of an outlet for their desires. Okay, so that's not a bad situation. They'll be forced to work hard as opposed to conceptualizing, which Aquarius does very well. But it's time to make it concrete. And this month into the next month is the time to do it. For Pisces, finally, last but not least, we have Pisces. We have a Moon-Jupiter conjunction in Pisces. And basically, this will make this sign very popular and make it popular with relationship-wise. But you'll be attracting people you're not sure you'll want to stay with for a long time, or they'll be kind of materialistic people. And Rahu's in the second house, so there'll be some expression of displeasure on this sign's part. And the fourth house Lord is in the seventh house, so relationship partners should be doing pretty well, although they'll probably be pretty critical or difficult to deal with. And if we go to Saturn over here in the 11th house, there'll be financial gains, but not as great as you would like. So we're still in kind of like what I would call a retrograde dominated chart. It'll be even more retrograde. It'll be less retrograde dominated, but Mars will be the planet in retrograde towards the end of the month, so that'll be a little bit difficult. So there'll be this rehashing of old hurts or old problems if Mars is difficult. And I would say a certain amount of irrationality. So that's why I think the next couple of months look difficult for peace efforts. And I am expecting a peace to be resolved, but not really until early next year. And that doesn't mean that other conflicts won't break out and that people in power won't be afraid of losing power. So let's look at the mundane chart again. So we spoke about that a little bit before I started. And so Rahu is in Aries, which is a sign connected with governance. And so essentially, all four angular signs or action starting signs are somewhat afflicted. Okay. And what that means in plain English is Rahu's in the first house. So there's this frustration that we can't get going. We can't break aside. Every step we take forwards, we tend to fall back a little bit. Saturn's retrograde. There's some kind of a desire for punitive activities. Business doesn't know what to do, and the public is afraid of losses or downturns. I mean, right now everybody's a little bit aggressive, and a little bit worried that they'll lose money, or that government is under a lot of pressure to produce. And I think next month when the elections come, Sun will be with K2. That's usually not a good sign for the incumbent, but can produce unexpected election results. And this will be true, like I said, not just in the United States, but around the world. So you'll see like these rapid transfers of power. The Moon-Jupiter conjunction is actually the saving grace, and that Venus-Mercury conjunction, even though Venus is debilitated, is kind of a saving grace. But there's another factor here to look at, and that is Venus's combust. It's really close to the sun, so its rays are negatively affected when it combusts. So there'll be a lot of focus on beauty, on having nice things, but not so much on wealth making. So you have to be a little bit careful about that. The other thing we want to look at is we want to look at the time-space map. Okay, so this is where the problems, where the opportunities or the problems in the world are. So let me just fix that. All right, so it looks like Mars is passing over the Hawaiian Islands and the Aleutians, so you'll see some conflicts. And I always say, especially political conflicts in Hawaii and over the Aleutians. Some possibly of volcanic activity or earthquakes here, but it's relatively, to me, it looks relatively minor. We have a Mercury and Jupiter combination over here in just close to the Canadian border in Alaska. And you also see a Jupiter, a Jupiter moon conjunction happening in Western Canada. So I think we'll hear more about this part of the world. We'll hear more about governmental policies and economic pressure. The one thing that's a little bit negative here is that the sun and moon are affecting the West Coast. So that's a full moon. That'll give changes to governance in the West Coast over the next few weeks. And we have a Rahu line passing right through Mexico, right through the Midwest up into Michigan. So I'm seeing some popular revolts or some and there's a Rahu Saturn line happening right here over Oklahoma and Missouri. And I think basically whenever I see a combination like that, I see like a lot of economic pressure, a lot of economic downturn, maybe even some natural catastrophes happening, but I hope not. There's nothing happening on the East Coast, although there is a Mercury line and a Jupiter line coming close to Washington, D.C., but it's hitting Guinea and Brazil and closer to Venezuela. Right now, there's a Mars line running right through Venezuela, Colombia, that part of South America, and Peru. And so you may see some disruptions of governments in those countries, disruptions of economies. Also, Brazil, there was a surprise in the election. The elections become much more competitive than they thought it would be. So you do see the potential for a change of governments in Brazil, but it won't be clear cut. And I think this is one of those regions which will be heavily affected by the eclipse. It's really, it'll be really fascinating to see whether or not the current president gets reelected or whether or not there's a contested election down there. There's no Rahu here, so it looks like they'll be fighting as opposed to some doubt about the election. There's a Rahu line passing through Iceland and Western Africa, around Ghana, and I think also England is going through kind of a panic. Europe looks like it's kind of in an economic decline right now. So does Libya and Italy, but this also tends to cause a certain amount of conservatism in those countries. It's interesting. What I've observed politically is that people tend to veer conservative when they're afraid about the future. Is when they're optimistic about the future, they'll veer liberal or more generous. So this tends to show this region of the world. I think you have this Mars line. They'll be fighting in some parts of Eastern Europe, maybe in Greece, maybe in Egypt, and down through Sudan, and down through Central African Republic, and down to South Africa. And you'll see some shifts in government in Saudi Arabia. Turkey is more connected with commerce. It's more worried about commerce. It's more worried about financial matters right now. And that's also what's hitting Ukraine and Russia more so than the actual war itself. So even though there's a struggle, this looks like, now again, we do see a Mars line close to the Ukraine, so that could indicate a major attack, but I'm not seeing any. And there is an indication that Russia will try to dominate because Rahu's over here. Rahu does connect with radiation to a certain extent, or with nuclear weapons, but I'm still not convinced they're going to deploy anything relatively soon. And I mean, there are indicators which could threaten that, but I'm tending to, so I'm going to be more conservative than I was before because I thought I was overly optimistic about Russia invading Ukraine, just put it bluntly. And so I'm not going to be over optimistic, but to me, it looks like the threat of bombs is a little bit, threat of nuclear weapons is a little bit overstated. I mean, there's certainly fear around it, but actual deployment is a different matter. But this part of the world I would look at very carefully over the next few weeks because there are a lot of planetary lines there. So this is going to be kind of a difficult area. Some potential for earthquakes in Eastern Europe, maybe in Middle Turkey, but not near Istanbul, and not near Ankara. And let's see now. Here we go down. There's a Rahu line going through Afghanistan and Pakistan. That could indicate, to me, it could indicate revolts based upon what I know about their charts. And also, India is between Rahu and Saturn lines, so they're a little bit. I want to say there's fear of economic collapse, but there's some danger of economic disarray in India. Okay, and some squabble with the Soviet Union as well, with northerly states and China. Mars line is running through China right now and Southeast Asia, really the area around Vietnam and down to the Philippines and down through Borneo, Indonesia, and into Australia. So essentially, I don't want to overplay the Mars line. Mars is really the second strongest planet in this chart. Um, but it doesn't look prepared as Mars is in Taurus. It's not really a warlike combination, although it's certainly war over territory, right? So that's what we're seeing in Ukraine. And the other aspect is there's a Jupiter Mercury line over the Philippines and close to Taiwan and Korea. Now, that doesn't mean there's going to be any kind of a conflict there. As a matter of fact, it weighs towards less of a conflict. But some of the leaders there may be a little bit over optimistic, may be willing to take a chance. So I think I'd watch that area carefully as well. This area right here, like between Japan, Korea, and Russia and China. So you have this entire spread of land, which is a little bit challenged. The other place we have a Rahu Saturn line crossing, but it's really crossing nowhere near any area of land. There's a Sun Venus Mercury conjunction in Australia. It means we're going to be hearing a lot about Australia over the next few weeks, but not necessarily in a negative way. But you probably will see some either rioting or some violence in South Central Australia. And Rahu is passing close to New Zealand again. New Zealand's a little bit isolated. It's starting to feel some panic. I haven't spoken about the COVID outbreak in the new COVID outbreak in Europe, but I don't think it's going to be that big a deal. It's starting to hit the United States a little bit, but again, it's not showing the same robustness that the original outbreak is. So I think it's going to. I think we're going to see a lot of panic over that. Really, over not very much. So I think that just about wraps me up. So the parts of the world I focus on are Western United States. Brazil looks fascinating because you have this Venus, Sun, Moon line here. That's really, and also this Mars line here. So that looks fascinating to me. And I also focus on the Middle East. It's always been kind of a tinderbox in the area and Eastern Europe. And I also focus on India just a little bit, and Pakistan and Afghanistan, and this part of the world over here by Korea, China, Japan, going down to Java, Indonesia. But this part is really the center point. This part's really kind of the problem area. And as a matter of fact, it's up over here where all these lines converge. So it's, I don't know, Finland's going to get involved, or Estonia or anything like that. It's going to get involved in any kind of a conflict. But it looks interesting that we have this kind of like meeting of these lines up here. Okay, so that's it for this week. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell. We are trying, the audience did build up. Thanks for watching the James Braha interview. I highly recommend going back to it. I am going to have more people um, on this particular channel in the future, so I'm going to have more fascinating guests. But the James Braha interview was really good from both a personal and a knowledge perspective. And I do hope to get some speakers from India, some speakers from well-known astrologers from around the United States and Europe and South America. And it's great to share knowledge. It's great to share knowledge with you who are viewing this. Thank you very much for watching. I love you all very, very much. Thank you so much, and may God bless you and keep you safe. And challenging times. Um, on a scale like 1 to 10 in terms of challenging times, compared to what the world's been through in the past, this is like around a 4 or 5. It can go, you can slip easily into a 7 or 8 territory, but on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the least dangerous, 10 being the most dangerous. But I don't think it will. And maybe I have more optimism than is warranted, but I tend to be an optimistic person. Also, a great time for you to take advantage of ways to improve yourself, to build up your confidence, to build up your strength and your courage. It's no time like the present. Okay. All right. God bless you. God is always with you. And again, I love you all. And namaste. Thank you for watching.